You are live. Welcome to the Shoy Show. It is June 6th, 2026. It is Saturday. So who's not excited? I just got some milk and sugar in my coffee, which I don't really have. I've been drinking black coffee for many years because I've been torturing myself. Got to remind myself that I have to live. So I should be having milk and sugar in my coffee. Nice little light and sweet. I checked out some newspapers. Actual physical newspapers. Wall Street Journal was $6. The Wall Street Journal was $6. What? When I was younger, I'm 36 now, but when I was younger and I used to eat a lot of junk food, I still do kind of sometimes. I used to equate my money, my expenditures in cheeseburgers. So $6, I would be like, what? I could buy at least 5 double cheeseburgers from McDonald's for that. Now that's impossible. Be lucky if you get 3. $6 for the Wall Street Journal? What the hell? What? But I got my milk and sugar in my coffee, which was delicious. It was just so delicious because I love milk and sugar in my coffee. I just have been depriving myself of it because, milk and sugar is not good for you. They say the internet, they say, don't drink milk, don't drink dairy, and then sugar's bad for you, blah, blah, blah. We all try to have healthy diets. Now you know my life in a nutshell. All right, let's get to the first topic, the New York Knicks. Now, I'm not one of those obnoxious New Yorkers. I am excited about the Knicks because, man, they are just such a good team. And anyone will tell you that. I mean, there is a deep fervor here. There is just so much excitement. People are getting rowdy in the streets. Everybody has their colors showing. The entire skyline, New York City skyline, is just lit up. It's really amazing to see. I've been watching the games with my friends, my loved ones. We're just all excited. Everybody wants to see the Knicks do something amazing, win the finals. And it looks like they are, I don't care what you do to this team at this point. If you watch basketball, this team is just unstoppable. They are just, you cannot, they will bend, they will not break. They are clutch, they are confident. There is veteran leadership. They know what they want. They hold each other accountable. There are no coaching mistakes. You seldom question a possession on the floor. The Knicks are amazing, and it's great to see. But guess what? It's 2026. And if you watch this show, you know that we always talk about the money aspect of things. If you are a New York fan, if you are a New York Knicks fan, you love this team. Like, this team, I guess you would love any team that you support, but this team is just, they're awesome. Like, they are just so much fun to watch. They are gritty. They play defense. They are just so efficient on offense. You can't even complain about the team. It's remarkable from top to bottom. Everybody that takes the floor is just playing above and beyond their role. It is just amazing to see. Now let's get to, again, the money side of things, because us New Yorkers, we're always going to be looking at costs. Now, I've been monitoring this a lot lately. So when the Knicks won the Eastern Conference Finals and went into the finals, tickets were already at like $3,800 for the worst seat in the arena. We're talking about nosebleeds in Madison Square Garden. Now, I'll remind you, the last time the Knicks were in the finals was 1999, so 27 years ago. The last time the Knicks won the finals was 1973. So we're talking 50 years ago. Tickets were $3,800 then. After a couple of days, it went up to $4,000. Not a huge difference. Then $5,000. Then we saw it to get up to $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, which is where we are now. But yesterday, after game 2, because they just won the first 2 games of the series, in case you're not following, tickets are now $10,000, the cheapest ticket in the arena. I am pissed. This is outlandish. This is not fair. It's bullshit. Unfortunately, I think we all have to just acquiesce and throw our hands up in the air, because what the hell are you going to do about it? If the price of coffee is $5, you got to deal with it. The only way you cannot pay $5 for a cup of coffee, of course, there are places where you can get coffee for $3, but I'm generalizing here. If you do not want to pay these prices in New York, do you know what you have to do? And this is a born and bred New Yorker. I am from here. I love my city. I love the people. I think it's an amazing city. We're just good people, and we work hard, and that's what New York is really just all about, right? Working hard, keeping your eyes straight, and just trying to, live in the concrete jungle. And we finally get one of our teams that represents our city, and we want to support them. I mean, actually, I wish my friends could have tickets, to be honest, right? I would love to go to the game, and I can afford to go to the game. I mean, of course, I would have to dip into my savings. Who the hell wants to spend $10,000 on a ticket? But I look at my friends I took a step back from sports in the last few years of my life, right? I absolutely love New York teams, and I've never seen a championship because I'm a Mets, Jets, Knicks, and Rangers fan. So I haven't seen a championship in my lifetime. And I would love to go to this game. I would love to be in the arena. Now, of course, I have gotten to see the Knicks a few times. And yeah, you really don't want to sit in the nosebleeds, but being there will mean something this time around. I actually would like for my friends to be able to afford this, because I have a lot of friends that are fanatics, right? They really love this team. They're watching games all year long. I'm just checking scores with any one of these teams. I'm not saying that they deserve to go more than I do or I them. It has nothing to do with it. I just try to put things into context. My perspective on it is damn, man, I know that if these tickets were actually cheap enough, I know that people would go. My friends would be flocking. They even if tickets were maybe $200, my friends would go to this game. And some of my friends really can't afford $200, but they would make it work. They would make some sacrifices, and they would make it work. And these are some, I know a lot of people that just don't have a lot of money for basic needs. It's like that. It really is like that. So now you see that your team has this level of success. It's a New York team. We understand that. It's in Madison Square Garden. We understand that. We understand that there's only 20,000 seats or so. And now we just got to deal with it. I mean, I wish I had better news. I wish that we could have some lottery system. I wish, I wish for $1 trillion and that world hunger would end, and all these other great wishes, I think. That's what I would wish for. I'd give away most of the money, if not all. What the hell would I do with that much money, right? But I wish that New Yorkers could actually enjoy this. I mean, my first question is, who the hell's going to be at this game? Who's going to be at this game? A bunch of celebrities, a bunch of out-of-towners that just want to, be there. And I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone. If you got the money, you got the money. But it's damn, man. And look, personally, I've been to enough venues that it's great to be in the stadium. It doesn't matter if it's soccer, football, basketball. It doesn't matter what it is. It's great to be in the stadium, but there are some times where I'm just man, this sucks. I'd rather watch this on the TV. And I have been with my friends lately, and I love it. I'd rather be around loved ones and just watching it on television personally. And this isn't really for me. This is I just keep thinking about everyone around me, and I'm damn, this sucks, man. This sucks. We're all grown adults. You have to be uber rich to attend one of these events? The money that they make is the money that they make. Some people are just not as fortunate as others. I have been extremely fortunate. God has done miracles for me, and I thank him every day for it. I could buy one of these tickets. That doesn't make me happy. Even if I could afford 5 tickets for friends. It's just why? Why does a ticket have to be $10,000? Now, I was speaking to my girlfriend about it, and she's from Brazil, and she said, listen, let me tell you something. If tickets were this expensive in Brazil for football, soccer, they would revolt. Oh yeah. And I've actually seen some shit in Brazil. I seen some shit to the point where security was taking long enough. Game time. See, that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love soccer. I grew up playing American football, basketball, whatever. But soccer, it's my favorite sport by far. It is the most beautiful sport in the world, in my opinion. I just love soccer, right? And I was at a game in Brazil, and when I was waiting on the line, one of the things I love about soccer is that the game always starts on time, right? The game always starts on time. Like, they do not mess around. Here, the New York Knicks, like, basketball, these guys sing the national anthem. Everybody goes, takes a shit, goes, gets Gatorade. They huddle. If game time's 8:30, game time should start at 8:30. Like, that should be the game. The game be starting at like 9 o'clock, like 30 minutes later, because there's all this hype around absolute nonsense, these pregame rituals that we have. Do that at 8 o'clock and start the game at 8:30. Anyway, I digress. In Brazil, if you do not start a game on time, people start getting rowdy. And I'm not talking about a little rowdy. I'm talking about throwing shit, fighting, spitting. These guys don't fuck around. You start the game on time. At least with baseball here in the United States, we start the games on time, which I appreciate as a fan. Especially as I'm older now, I got to go to sleep, man. I'm too tired, okay? I can't watch half these games. But she was telling me, she said, look, if you actually made tickets this expensive in Brazil, people would revolt. Oh, they wouldn't protest. Let's get something straight, okay? Because soccer is a phenomenon in Brazil. It's part of their culture, their heritage, their blood. It is absolutely in their blood. Like, they would riot. Like, forget about it. Like, they would riot. They'd probably burn jerseys. They would fuck shit up. I assume they would go and probably like tear down the stadium. Like, that's some shit, right? Because who can actually get into the stadium? And I've been to enough games like around the world. I've gotten to go to, a few countries and see some games. And like, tickets have always been cheap. Not even cheap for an American. Trust me, I'm being careful here. But tickets are relatively cheap for the average local. It doesn't matter if you're in Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, or even in Europe. Like, I saw a Barcelona game and it really wasn't even expensive. And it was like Barcelona against, I forget what, but it was one of their rivals, right? It's always a rival, but it was a good game, and they always have a great team. So it's just like, we've gotten too far here. And like, I just want to come back down to earth here, because you know what earth is? Earth means that we can never see a Knicks game again. That's the reality check. Say goodbye to the team. All New York fans, you will never watch the Knicks fans. You will never watch the Knicks in person again. Real New York fans. And I'm not saying that these fans are fake or anything. I don't know who the hell can afford $10,000. Like, what? Like, what are you going there for at that point? Like, just to say I have to be there, the fear of missing out. And that's how people capitalize, right? I mean, tickets were as much as $13,000 for the cheapest ticket. People have paid $140,000 for tickets, $200,000. Someone paid $240,000 for a ticket. What are we talking about here? And I just wish that the people around me could actually enjoy something like this, because I think they would love to be in the stadium. They would love to be in the Garden. I mean, this is a historical moment. It's one of the best teams that ever played in the finals, and it happens to be our team. But we have to watch it on television. They asked Trump about it. He's actually going to be at the game along with Mayor Zohran Mamdani. This is what he had to say.
Well, I know, I can watch it on television. It's sort of semi-free to watch it on television, but that's the way life goes. You have some, and now if the team wasn't a big success, you could go very easily. So, you can do that too, but that's the way life is. They've had great success. And don't forget, they've suffered also losses, and they've suffered during the bad time. Now they have a good time. They have a team that's amazing. I don't think they've lost a playoff game. Very unusual.
Now, of course, someone's always going to write something negative about Trump, right? When he's wrong, he's wrong. And of course, we report on this, right? I don't agree with 90% of his damn policies. But however, they really spun this story. They're like, Trump says, bite the bullet. They can watch shit on television, as if he's saying like he's super rich or anything. The way the media is spinning this right now, I just totally don't agree with. Listen, just tell the truth, right? If Trump was actually being a dick, you can say that. He's not here. He's saying they can watch it on television. Why? Because prices are out of control. What the hell are you going to do? Because the only remedy right now for us to not pay these New York prices, forget about a Knicks game, is to move. Either move or make enough money to live in this city comfortably. That's the reality. If you want to do stuff like this, you either need to make more money, like an outlandish amount of money, or if you really refuse to pay these prices, you got to get out of the city. And that's the reality, and that sucks, because you can call it gentrification, you can call it getting priced out, whatever, idiom you want to use, it doesn't matter. You got to go. If you don't want to pay these prices, you have to leave. And it's unfortunate. And to me, it's really not fair. So I don't think it's, that crazy for me to say something to the effect of goodbye. Say goodbye to the Knicks. You will never watch the Knicks again. You will never watch the Knicks in person again as a New York fan, because these prices are insane. $10,000, $140,000. Look at what StubHub is actually saying on this site. $60,000, an amazing deal. $96,000, an amazing deal. $17,000, an amazing deal. I mean, you got to be kidding me. We haven't even checked. You know what? That's game 3, which is the first home game in the Garden. Let's check game 4, which is the potential closeout game. We got to look at this. Wow. Cheapest ticket for game 4, which is the second home game, which is the potential championship winning game for the New York Knicks. The cheapest ticket is $13,255. Amazing deal, $103,000. Amazing, $89,000. Amazing, $24,000. So say goodbye. Just say goodbye to watching the Knicks. Maybe you can watch the Knicks when they're having a really bad, season, but they're always sold out. And it's because everybody's buying these skyboxes, all of these hedge fund managers. They just want to wine and dine and show their clients a good night on the town, a fun night. They're trying to pay them back, trying to get more business, whatever it is. These 20,000 seats or so are at the highest premium you can imagine. And we're just not going to get to watch them anymore. Like, I don't think I can ever watch the Knicks again unless it's like a terrible team in the middle of the season, and maybe I can score a ticket that's still going to be a nosebleed. Maybe I can score a ticket for, I don't know, $200, which is still not cheap. $300. I mean, I tried to watch LeBron, I think this past year, and like tickets were like $800 to $900, just because I wanted to see LeBron in maybe what would have been his final season. Again, there's really nothing we could do. And that's kind of like, that part sucks the most, that we really can't do anything about this. Because I've done some research, right? You really can't do anything about this. The only way is for the Knicks to subsidize ticket prices, which they're not going to do that. What do you think? They're just going to stunt their ticket revenue? That's how they make money. That's how they pay their salaries. The Knicks are not going to do that. Now, of course, these are all on the secondary market, meaning that someone purchased it and then resold, maybe purchased again, resold. This might have been resold 3, 4, 5 times. And people just keep taking the premium off the top. But it's sad to see. It's sad to see that we can't even enjoy, basic fun in our city. We're essentially being told to stay at home, watch the game on TV. I mean, there were watch party tickets yesterday for game 2. There were watch party tickets for $175. What? That's to go to Madison Square Garden while the Knicks play the Spurs in Texas, in San Antonio, and you go to Madison Square Garden, buy a ticket for $175, and then you're going to buy what? Drinks and food and whatever, transportation to get there. That's probably $400 a person or something, right? I mean, who has this money? It's just outlandish. It's bullshit, man. And yeah, just say goodbye to the Knicks, because I don't think you'll get to ever watch this team, especially when it counts. That's garbage. That's pretty fucked up, man. So that's the Knicks. Wanted to, run through that. All right, we're gonna get to our first topic today because I just spent like 20 minutes talking about the Knicks, right? So, because this topic is awesome, got to get the banner up. So give me a second. If you don't want to wait, I mean, what you gonna do? You gotta wait sometimes, okay? Because robots now outnumber humans online. You heard that correct. Bot traffic has now exceeded online clicks, online traffic. For years, people joked about the dead internet theory. The idea was that more and more of what we see online isn't actually created by people. But here we are. It's bots talking to bots, AI generating content, automated systems scraping websites, fake engagement, fake clicks, and machine generated traffic pretending to be human activity. That is where we are in 2026. And this isn't just about fake likes or fake clicks or any of that. And this isn't a conspiracy theory, not anymore. We're saying that bot traffic has surpassed human traffic. So automated clicks, automated engagement now accounts for somewhere between 51 and 57% of internet traffic, meaning machines may now generate more activity online than actual human beings. They do. Think about that for a second. This is one of the biggest milestones in the history of the internet, actually, in our generation. And it just happened without people actually noticing. Are you surprised? Are you shocked? I wouldn't have noticed had this not come out. So let's translate this for a second. For the first time in our history, we may be living in an internet world where humans are the minority. Bam! Oh yeah, that's big news, man. That's like, I'm not trying to hype this up. Websites exist to serve people. That was the orientation, right? Humans searched, we clicked, we posted, we commented. Now automated traffic accounts for the majority of activity. So that means more than half of what moves across the internet may no longer be people. It's software, algorithms, AI crawlers. And that's where we are today. What you gonna do about it? Nothing. But it's important to point out, because if you really think that the robots are coming, and I do, I also think we're gonna be building these amazing skies and amazing buildings all the way up until not space, but real high up in the air. Yes, I believe in that futuristic society. It will come. But if this trend continues, what exactly becomes the purpose of the internet? Does it still serve one? Is it primarily a place for humans? Because if we're not interacting with each other anymore, is it just becoming infrastructure for machines? That's some food for thought. And before everybody panics, not every bot is malicious. Some bots are useful, of course. Google's search crawler is a bot. Bing uses bots. AI companies use bots. We have agents. Some of the automated traffic actually helps the internet function, right? So this is a lot of thwarting viruses, automated pipelines, whatever these bots are doing to enable our traffic. However, there is also fake traffic. There are scams and account takeovers. There is ad fraud. Of course, there's fake engagement, fake views, fake clicks. That probably resonates with everyone. Now, some reports estimate that about a third of all internet traffic is actually these malicious bots. That's a third, meaning that maybe that remaining 20, 25% are the good bots, the agents running in the background, the automation that we actually need. But if over a third of traffic is actually malicious automation, how much of what we see online is actually real? I think almost every single, you know what I find really funny? First of all, I think everyone now opens an article or a video and now question, like one of the first questions at the top of your mind is this AI? That's terrible. We knew we would get there. I've been thinking about that for a while now. We're there. You have to question every single thing that you see on the internet. That is a terrible place for us to be in. Now, this is where things get really interesting because AI companies need the data, all of these hyperscalers. That's how they make decisions, lots of data. They need it to train models. They need it to crawl websites, forums, articles, images. Every time you use ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is, they are scraping information together and they are producing an answer for you. The result is a growing battle between publishers and these AI crawlers. News organizations want traffic. AI companies want data. Website owners want visitors. Bots want information. Now, for decades, websites competed for human attention. Now, many websites are competing for machine attention too. And that's a completely different internet. But again, think about the benchmark. That means the majority of our traffic out there, the World Wide Web, is all automated. It's all robots. Not necessarily robots, but what we call bots, which are essentially agents or any type of automated process. And that has exceeded our own engagement. So the physical layer, or like the physical element of what's out there in the webosphere, that has been usurped. And that, again, is a huge benchmark. So then you got to ask yourself, like, can you trust online numbers anymore? Because if you already know that about half of it is bot related, what happens to online metrics? How many views were real? How many followers are real? How many comments are real? You can buy most of this. If you wanted engagement, or if you wanted to look like you had engagement, you can absolutely purchase that. It's actually pretty cheap. Or you could do it for free, just by maybe watching some ads or doing some surveys. How many viral trends are being amplified by automated systems? We already know that some of these systems are rigged. They elevate some videos, they throttle some others. I see it all the time on my end, on my channels. But advertisers are caught up in this, right? Because they spend hundreds of billions of dollars every year based on that internet traffic, based on those numbers. Companies are actually valued based on internet traffic. But what happens if a growing percentage of that traffic is not human? So are they actually getting the eyeballs that are being reported as views, as engagement, as clicks? So the entire advertising model, as far as what these media companies are selling, is going to change, because they need to be heavily discounted now, considering that the majority of our traffic is fake. It's just bot related. Now, personally, I actually think this is one of the biggest technology stories of the year. I think it's an incredible feat. I think we should take a moment to understand, hey, maybe this is the inflection point, right? Like maybe this is where, all the robots come in. I'm not sure. I don't want to, paint a grim picture or anything, but this is fascinating. And maybe you don't think it is, but I mean, we're no longer the we're no longer we're no longer the majority. The internet is for us. And that's where we are today. The number, it's not necessarily about the numbers. The number is just a symptom, right, of everything that we've enabled, all of the technological advancements. But the bigger issue is not the issue, but what does this tell us about the future? For decades, the internet connected people. Now it is increasingly connecting machines, AI talking to AI, bots talking to bots, algorithms responding to algorithms. And if that's true, we're truly crossing an inflection point. Machines are actually creating content for other machines. The internet transformed society because it connected billions of humans. What happens when the majority of activity belongs to something else? Because if machines become the primary users of the internet, we're not just changing technology, we're actually changing what the internet actually is, right? It's no longer ours. Or maybe it's this great big thing and we just own a piece of it. It's just shocking, right? The internet was ours in its entirety. We owned 100% of it. Of course, there was some automation going on in the background. But to see bot traffic exceed our own traffic, I mean, are we reaching the inflection point of sentience being put in to these machines? I mean, that's the futuristic view, right? The dark, glum outlook of the machines taking over, right? That they eventually will get the brains and will somehow obtain emotions and then take over. And yeah, if we create a smart enough robot, it could probably happen. I don't doubt that at all. Yeah, I'm thinking iRobot. I'm thinking about all these movies, right? Where the machines take over. That could definitely happen. I mean, we're already creating enough content that feeds into other content. We are now the minority on the internet. That is a shocking story. It's a shocking headline. And oh, by the way, there is actually so much data. It's actually almost an unlimited amount of data at this point, but there's so much data that's needed for all of these large language models. It's going to continue building upon itself. I wouldn't be surprised if one day we get to be 1% even less of all of the internet traffic out there. Bots may be the overwhelming majority one day. Is that too far-fetched? I don't think it is. What started at 5% is now over 50%. We're now the minority. Where do you think this is going? We just launched ChatGPT in 2020? The trajectory says that ultimately we will be the overwhelming minority. What that means for society, I'm not sure, but I'm sure we're going to be challenging what we see out there more and more. I think most people that don't agree with a particular story or video or media article, they just dismiss it and say that that's artificial intelligence. And that's kind of the way to get away from it, right? Get away from it all and just, undermine what you're seeing. And we'll probably see a lot more of that because, I mean, that's just the state that we're in. All right, next topic. Yeah, and it's like, oh man, I love this because we're about to get into it. Who's your favorite guy? Who's your favorite guy in the world? Who is it? Is it Jared Kushner? I knew it was. Of course it was. Of course it is. Jared Kushner, your favorite son in law. Now, wait, why is Jared Kushner building resorts in Albania? What's going on over here? Okay, whatever. He's just doing something. He's got a lot of money. He's, a multimillionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars, married to Ivanka Trump, son in law of the president. And yes, you might be surprised to learn that one of the biggest political controversies in Albania right now isn't about Albania. It's about Jared Kushner, our favorite son-in-law. He is backing a luxury development that could total well over $1 billion in investment. The centerpiece is a proposed luxury resort on Sazan Island, a former military island off of Albania's Mediterranean coast. Now, this is some of the amazing water that you'll see over there. And the people are pissed. Oh, yeah. We have had a week of violent protests. There's another project involving development along the Albanian Riviera, one of the fastest growing tourism regions in Europe. And the protesters are not just pushing back because they necessarily oppose tourism or economic growth, but because they believe politically connected developers are being given access to land and resources that ordinary people could never obtain. Because guess who's buddy? Yeah, Donald Trump and their prime minister. Now, most Americans have probably never heard of Sazan Island. I have not. Sazan Island sits between the Adriatic and Ionian Seas. For decades, it was a restricted military zone. During the Cold War, it was heavily fortified. Today, it is largely undeveloped. Kushner's investment group, Affinity Partners, which we hear time and time again, has proposed transforming portions of the island into a luxury tourism destination. High-end hotels, luxury villas, wealthy international travelers. Sounds like he's going to get more rich. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, is there political favor in the midst here? Probably. Think of the kind of development you would see in Monaco, Dubai, or the Greek islands. The Albanian government sees opportunity. Developers see opportunity. Environmental groups see risk, and local activists see a political influence problem. That is why they're protesting. Now, of course, the numbers matter here. Albania has roughly 2.7 million people. New York City alone has more than 3 times that population. It's a relatively small country trying to attract foreign capital. Tourism already accounts for a significant share of Albania's economy. Last year, Albania attracted roughly 10 million visitors. So the government wants more investment. The question protesters are asking is, investment for whom? Who benefits? Who gets the contract, the land, the profits, and who gets pushed aside? Because usually, once a coastline gets turned into luxury property, it's not going back. And the people know that. So now we have to get into the political angle. The Trump angle. This is where things become a little uncomfortable because Jared Kushner, of course, is the son-in-law of the President of the United States. He's also a former senior White House advisor. Actually, he's also a senior White House advisor. You see him all the time speaking on behalf of the US government and its constituents. He was just in Iran trying to make a deal. Did you elect him? I didn't. So then you have to ask yourself, would these deals exist if his last name wasn't Kushner? Would these opportunities exist if he wasn't connected to one of the most powerful political families in the world? That's not an accusation. It's just a question. Political influence doesn't have to involve a phone call. It doesn't have to involve corruption. Sometimes it simply means being associated with powerful people. Sometimes doors open because everybody knows who you are. Did Jared Kushner create any of that? Or is it just because he's the son-in-law of the president of the United States? How do you even measure that? I don't know. Is this a conflict of interest? Many people in Albania don't like the idea. Again, they've been protesting for over a week now. This is Albania erupting for the second consecutive day. Mass protests. This is against the Kushner land seizure deal worth up to $4 billion. And remember, they said that they might do this to Palestine as well. Trump had made many remarks about rebuilding all of Gaza and making luxury resorts on the land. Now, we can deal without the theatrics, but again, they have been protesting. Who's benefiting? Where does all the money go? And do you think, this is making a mockery of it, right? But I mean, this is what they're saying is happening to Albania. So essentially, this little piece is going to be Israel. Now, Jared Kushner also happens to be Jewish, but they're saying that this little piece of land of Albania, again, is just going to be Israel. I mean, I would question it. Like, why would you be selling this piece of land? Is it a conflict of interest? I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps. The fact that Trump is very close to the prime minister, right? And who the hell is Jared Kushner? Like, who is this guy? This guy's flying around the world, speaking on our behalf, cutting deals, taking advantage of the, positional power that he's been given. And people are questioning that. Again, remember, Trump talked about redeveloping Gaza. That idea generated enormous controversy. What, are you going to take away the land? What, are you going to own everything on other people's land? Of course, the way that they were spinning it, and you have to pay attention to the propaganda, the rhetoric matters here. It was that the land was devastated, but it could be rebuilt into something that's economically valuable. That's how you take advantage of people, right? You see them in desolate conditions and you come along and you say, hey, I have a boatload of money for you. And there will be economy and prosperity and everyone will be happy. But you have to take this deal. And that includes you forfeiting your rights to live on this land, to own this land. It will now be leased back to you, or we will own all of the structures on the land. Whatever it is, you've got to trade for something. But what if the people actually don't want that? And then if you see this many people out there protesting, it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, any of that. But if you do see that many people protesting, you got to ask, all right, well, what the hell is the prime minister's best interest here? Like, well, what is he doing? Isn't he serving the people? Do the people of Albania actually want this? Do they want hotels, tourism, business, investment? Clearly they don't. They're protesting, right? Again, it's the same thing with Gaza. Look at the land primarily through its economic potential. That's how they sell it to you. Now, who has the standing to actually make a decision on this, to deliberate? Of course, it's the prime minister. He has the positional power. But ultimately, it belongs to the people, right? They elected him, not the other way around. So let's just make the assumption that Albania actually doesn't want this. They're questioning why we would give all of the rights to build on this land to the son-in-law of the president of the United States and whatever his company is, affinity partners. And let's assume that the prime minister is not listening to them and there's something shady going on here, because that's what it looks like, right? Maybe I'm thinking too much, but maybe I'm a cynic. But that's what it looks like, right? I see people protesting relentlessly for over 1 week, questioning why an undeveloped island with a beautiful coastline, a prime waterfront property, why those rights would be sold to private hands without their consent. I mean, the prime minister is making this decision independently. These are public assets. It is their land. Could you imagine a portion of your state just being sold to either another state or another country? That's kind of what's happening here, right? Because Jared Kushner and his company, Affinity Partners, will have the rights to that land. What they can do on it, develop, they'll own everything essentially. They can probably charge as much money as they want for people to go there. It's not their land. So the story, it's not really about Albania per se. This is a picture of the island, Sazan Island. It isn't really even about Jared Kushner. It's about how political families convert influence into opportunity. The Clintons did it, the Bush family did it, the Kennedys did it, the Trump family is doing it. Am I blaming Trump here? Absolutely not. Go make your money. Exploit as much as you can. They're living within the guidelines. Is it unethical? Probably. Do you want your leaders profiting while they're in office? Probably not. Some people just don't give a shit. Some people think that when they hear a story like this, they're like, oh, look at this guy. He's anti-Trump. I don't give a shit about being anti-anything. I'm just pointing it out. If I was a leader in this country, well, why would I profit? Why? Why did you get into politics, man? Did you get into politics to rob people? Why the hell would you do that? Especially if you believe in God. Why would you do that? You're going to make a ton of money anyway. You're going to get a good salary in politics. By good, I mean over 100K, which is sufficient. Let's not get into semantics here. Secondly, once you leave politics, you can probably go work in private. Everyone will want you if you did a good job, if you worked with integrity and honesty. And you're probably going to have the ability or the potential to make millions of dollars. It happens all the time. So I don't see a reason why Jared Kushner or anyone else for that matter would feel the need to actually go and take over another country, another piece of a country's land. And when you see this level of pushback, when you see people coming out in droves, I mean, they are out there. This is a country of 2.7 million people. There are thousands of people in the streets for over a week. Clearly, they don't agree with this. Who are we looking at? Who should we be looking at? We should be looking at Albania's prime minister, Edi Rama. I mean, how is he benefiting here? You don't think there's a conflict of interest? You don't think there's some corruption going on? I'm not asking people to think much. They're now calling this Trump Island. And to me, when I look at our leadership, I'm like, damn, man, like how corrupt do you have to be? I mean, you can't help yourself? And who has to answer for all of this? It's Eddie Rama. It's no one else. He's the one that's giving away this piece of land. We see it all the time. He doesn't have to sign this over. He should be listening to the people. Note that I'm not saying that this is a Trump problem. We've seen this in damn near every presidency that we can remember. I'm addressing the fact that political power creates networks. Networks create access. That creates opportunities. And then the people are usually left holding the bag. And if we are privy to this information, we start asking ourselves, where do we draw the line here? I mean, he's literally giving away a piece of our land, a piece of our heritage, a piece of our country, a piece of our identity. That's the prime minister that you elected. Now, of course, that's the problem with representative democracy, but that's a whole nother topic. But if a White House advisor wants to also become a global real estate developer, now we have to go back to Jared Kushner for a second, right? Because he's in the middle of all of this, and we didn't elect him. I'm not complaining. I'm not bitching over here, right? I'm not crying, okay? I don't give a shit about Jared Kushner or Donald Trump or any of this shit. I'm just saying, like it's like the people are powerless here. There's 2.7 million of them. They can't do a damn thing. Chances are this deal is going to go through. But even if we ask the question from the perspective of the United States, as an American citizen, we're looking at a White House advisor. And he wants to go cut real estate deals around the world? Should there be limits here? Hey, I mean, dude, like you're supposed to work in our best interest. What the hell are you going out there trying to cut a multi-billion-dollar deal for that's not going to benefit the United States in any way? There's got to be a separation here, right? Between what he has to do in an official capacity and what he does in private. I mean, for goodness sake, Donald Trump is trading stocks. I mean, forget, I mean, call it whatever you want. Call it a conflict of interest. Call it unethical, whatever it is. It's just wrong. It's wrong. And if the people are actually pushing back, if the people are revolting against the idea of you purchasing their land, what do you think is going to happen here, by the way? We've seen this story many times before. I would bet that Jared Kushner and Donald Trump and everyone else is just going to remain silent. Eddie Rama is defending himself on all major news outlets across the United States. But I would bet that the Albanian voice will ultimately be suppressed. They're going to hold out for as long as they can. The Albanians will probably stop protesting at some point, and then they will acquiesce. And guess what? Sazan Island will become this Trump Island. They will build their developments, their resorts, and this key Mediterranean island that Albanians do not want to give up will no longer be theirs. And that's because the Prime Minister, Eddie Rama of Albania, has enabled it. And it's not lost on me, or it shouldn't be lost on anyone else, that him and Donald Trump are very good friends. They have a very good relationship. Two of the most powerful people in the world, right? Two presidents have an extremely good relationship, and now they're making a multi-billion-dollar deal on the side. And they're trying to keep quiet about it, but again, Albanians will not. Or maybe you say that it's impossible to separate the investment from political influence, right? Because that made the opportunity possible in the first place. But right now, Thousands of people are protesting miles, thousands of miles away from Washington. We've never heard of this island. And I guess the question for the audience is, where do we draw the line on political power? Where do we draw the line for our leaders to be profiting while they're elected in an official capacity? I think it makes it worse that this is happening from someone like Jared Kushner, because he's the son-in-law. He's just a White House advisor. He's just been appointed to hey, this is my buddy over here, my son-in-law. He's just going to go do stuff for me. He didn't need to be elected. He didn't need to be vetted. Nothing. This guy just gets government clearance, no Senate confirmation hearings. That's the way you get around these things. What else do you think Jared Kushner is doing on behalf of Donald Trump and his family? Oh, he's doing a lot, because it's also his family, right? I mean, like, it doesn't get any worse than that. Do you think that they're taking advantage of this situation? It certainly looks like it to me. I don't see it any other way. And again, it's unfortunate, because if this guy were just a little bit more patient, I think they could still make billions of dollars while they're outside of office. The fact that they're doing it in front of us just tells you one thing and one thing only. They don't give a shit. They are willing to just wield all of the political influence that they have. And they see that making money, making deals is way more important than serving our interests. And if you think you can do both at the same time, you really can't. Because on one hand, you are completely taking advantage of us. You are, right? Because if you were not president of the United States or a White House advisor, you would not have this opportunity. On the other hand, you may be telling yourself that I'm still passing laws to help Americans. I'm still trying to create jobs, lower inflation, do the things that they appointed me to do. But by the meanwhile, on the side over here, I'm just going to be making as much money as I can. To me, that's wrong. Our leaders should have no interest. They should have their hands full, right? There should be no other side hustles. They should thwart the idea of taking up any opportunity that isn't serving the interest of the American people. Else, just leave office. I don't understand why you have to be a president or a senator or in Congress if that's what you really want to do. If you want to focus your efforts on enriching yourself, just leave office. It's not why we elected you. And if there's anyone out there, and I'm sure there are many people out there that just don't give a shit about this story, they're like, Albania? What the hell do I care about Albania? The other argument, of course, is that, you know what? Trump is doing his thing. There's no law that says that he can't make money while serving as the American president. Nobody's saying that there's a law. I'm asking you what you think. What do you think? Right? If I told you that, let's say in your church or your mosque or someone that's supposed to be serving in a pretty damn moral capacity in your life, if all of a sudden, you found out that they were doing something on the side like this, when they come off as extremely humble, or they come off as extremely, subservient, they try to be, servant leaders to you and your community. And then all of a sudden you hear that they're living some extremely lavish life. And I mean, what are we talking about here, right? There's literally thousands of people protesting, this action in the Albanian streets, right? It's like, come on, like, we're not talking about something small here, right? It's not like, the leader that you're praising is just driving a Lamborghini or something. We're talking about billions of dollars and giving away a piece of land. That's what we're talking about. You wouldn't look at your leader kind of side-eyed? I don't think this takes much thought. That's why it's easy to report on most of these topics, because the facts are all out there. They clearly don't give a shit. But again, if you don't care about Albania, I think you should care about what's going on within our own borders. And that's President Trump, right? He's enabling all of this. He's allowing all of this. And we should be telling him, hey, we won't stand for this. We don't agree with it. You may not give a shit about Albania, but the concern here should be, is our president taking advantage of his political power? All right, next topic. And this is a juicy one because we like juicy, juicy, juicy. Let me just get the banner up. Please be patient. And if you don't want to be patient, I'm sorry, okay? I wish I had hors d'oeuvres to hand out. Little ham and cheese sandwiches. I saw somebody giving out some little ham and cheese little sandwiches while I was taking a walk earlier, you know? I was going to take one, but, you know, I was embarrassed. Why? I don't know. But who doesn't want a little ham and cheese sandwich, you know? You know, I was talking to one of my friends the other day. I was shocked. He doesn't like mayonnaise. I was like, dude, are you serious? He's like, no, I don't like mayonnaise. I don't like fucking mayonnaise. I was like, bro, what's wrong with you? He's like, bro, I don't like fucking mayonnaise. Is that a problem? I was like, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. You don't have to like mayonnaise, but like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what did mayonnaise ever do to you? And mayonnaise is delicious. But, you know, he just doesn't like mayonnaise. And then, like, I wouldn't relent because I was just like, dude, I was like, how do you not like mayonnaise? Like, you don't like ham and cheese on some potato bread, you know, with some mayonnaise, some mustard, like, and then another guy jumps in and he's just like, dude, he's like, mayo's like the lubricant of a sandwich. And I totally agreed with that. You know, now we got to look up mayonnaise. We got to do a little bit on mayo now. Man, how do you not like mayonnaise? I don't understand it. It's delicious. And I'm not talking about, I used to work at Subway when I was younger. And one of the, you know, I used to have like a customer, she was a regular. And I learned after like the first time, she was just like, can I get some more mayonnaise? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, and I put some more mayonnaise. And then she's like, some more. And I'm like, all right, cool. She's like, hey, you know, and she told me she was like on a diet or whatever. She's like, some more, you know. And I'm like, I am like flooding this sandwich. I am just drenching the sandwich filled with mayonnaise. And it's just like, honestly, it was pretty disgusting, but she just liked her mayonnaise. I just don't understand. I started attacking my friend, which is wrong, right? Because I should have respect for his decisions, right? Now, there's another thing. He also doesn't like, I was like, dude, I was like, you don't like mayonnaise? He's like, no, bro. I just told you I don't like mayonnaise. I was like, do you like cheesecake? Because something told me that he was probably one of those, you know, I'm like, dude, do you like cheesecake? And he's just like, nah, bro, I don't like cheesecake either. I was like, I knew it. You son of a bitch. How do you not like cheesecake? And cheesecake has nothing to do with mayo, of course, but I'm like, I knew it. I knew something was up to you. Ugh. Anyway, so then I started attacking him, which I'm sure maybe he just didn't give a shit, right? We were just joking around. But I'm like, dude, I was like, so you're telling me if I gave you an excellent sandwich or an amazing burger and I put like a mayo, and he's Ecuadorian and Colombian. So it's like, you know, like Colombians famously and like Dominicans and everything, like, you know, a lot of South Americans, they make something like a pink sauce, right? We love pink sauce all over the world, right? Mayonnaise and ketchup. I'm like, dude, if I gave you like a burger or something with mayonnaise and ketchup, you wouldn't eat it? And he's just like, no. I was like, bro, like if I gave you an amazing sandwich and I was just like, hey, here's this sandwich. I was like, you know, he's like, I would ask you if you put mayo on it. I was like, but if I just gave you like a nice elaborate, you know, a nicely made sandwich and it was just delicious, it was hot and everything, like nobody's just gonna look for mayo. He's like, nah, I would look for mayo. And then I got to the point where I was like, all right, man, like I guess like, you know, because usually like you take food from someone and you just eat it, you're not gonna really look at it. And if let me tell you something, for anybody that like inspects their food before eating it, You could do that. I mean, like, this is fucking weird. Okay, you're not gonna die. Stop thinking everything's clean or whatever. There's dirt on everything. Don't make me go too far down this rabbit hole over here. All right? Mayo's delicious. Cheesecake is delicious. Strawberry cheesecake, chocolate cheesecake, all cheesecake is delicious. I don't understand how you don't like mayonnaise. I don't understand. I was so confused. And by the way, Hellman's matters, okay? I'm not even selling Hellman's or anything, but like Hellman's mayonnaise is really good. Like if you buy a different, grade of mayonnaise, like I always buy generic brands of everything, but like if you buy like a generic brand of mayonnaise, it does taste different. Sometimes it's not so bad, but anyway, I should have been a better person and I should have just accepted the fact that he doesn't like mayonnaise. And by the way, what am I trying to do at that point in time? Trying to convince him that he should like mayonnaise. That's like trying to convince a Republican to be a Democrat or vice versa. And that's not happening. It's not even healthy. Shame on me. I don't know what else to say over here, All right, let's get into our next topic. Because China doesn't play around, man. I mean, 37 years after the Tiananmen Square crackdown, Chinese authorities reportedly warned families of the victims not to visit cemeteries or hold memorials. What? China. Shit. I'm in the camp of, I have not been to China yet. I have to go to China. It's not just on the list. I am going to go to China. God willing. I'm going to China. I have to go to China and India. Those are two essential places for me to visit because I have been learning about these two countries my entire life, and I am not going to accept media narratives, textbooks, research papers. I'm not going to accept any of that. I need to go see these countries, meet these people, eat the food, feel the city on my own. And I wish everybody could have that opportunity because, we just say China this, China that. We just boil China and India, into sound bites. And it's wrong. It's just totally invalid. I mean, collectively, they have 3 billion people, damn near half the world's population. And we're just like, China this, India that. So I want to go to China and just see how it is and talk to people. Maybe they won't talk to me. I'm going to have to learn a little, Mandarin, Cantonese. I got to learn something. I'm not going to just go over there and not know anything. But China, man, I mean, wow. This isn't even about what happened in 1989, right? I mean, why is the government still this concerned about people remembering it in 2026? They warned families not to visit cemeteries or hold memorials. Now, I'm going to show you another picture here because, I mean, this is it right here, man. When you see these images coming out of China, you're like, damn, China don't play, man. There's a reason why they glorify their leadership. It's to remind them of where they came from and what will happen to them if they step out of line. One of my friends that lived in China for 4 years, he moved away and then he went back there to live again. He told me, look, you can't commit a crime in China. You just can't. It's just, there's cameras everywhere. Everything's beefed up with security. You just can't. The only crime that you could really commit is like driving drunk. Like you're not going to get away with anything is what he was saying. Or maybe getting into a bar fight. And that's probably the only crime that you see. Of course, there's going to be an underworld over there like there is in every country. But there's like an embedded fear in these countries because, and there should be here in the United States as well, right? We all know that our phones are listening to us, watching us. That, the government, any of these, agencies, CIA, NSA, if they wanted to, they could turn on your camera on your laptop or your phone. I mean, there's nothing that the US government wouldn't do. They have all of the resources. If you cross the line, they will certainly penalize you for it. If you cross enough of a line. So let's not just act like China is the only one that would do something like this, conduct espionage on their own people. I mean, we have the Patriot Act for a reason, right? I mean, like, the United States is totally capable of doing this, and they would. I have no doubt that if the United States actually wanted to do this, like if they wanted someone to disappear, they would just kidnap them. I mean, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, right? Anyway, June 4th, 1989 remains one of the most sensitive dates in modern Chinese history. The protest started after the death of reform-minded Chinese leader Hu Yaobang. Students gathered in Beijing asking for greater transparency, less corruption, and political reform. The movement grew after a student started protesting, and it turned into nationwide demonstrations involving workers and ordinary citizens. At its peak, hundreds of thousands of people filled Tiananmen Square and surrounding streets. Then the government declared martial law. On the night of June 3rd and into June 4th, troops moved into Beijing. Tanks then entered the city. And this is where you get this amazing image of this protester standing in front of the tanks. He was ultimately removed. It is a famous photo. I don't think you can Google this photo without VPN in China. I'm pretty sure that you can't. Actually, I don't think you can Google anything on Tiananmen Square. I think I read that a few times in the past. So then the government declares martial law. And as tanks entered the city, soldiers opened fire as they advanced toward the square. The exact death toll is still disputed, but Chinese authorities historically acknowledged around 300 deaths, while outside estimates have ranged from hundreds to potentially thousands. So no comprehensive accounting has ever been released, no official one at least. And here's the question, right? If your version of history is correct, why would you be afraid of people discussing it 37 years later? The Chinese government says that 300 deaths occurred at Tiananmen Square in 1989. If that's the story that you agree with, like, of course, they've never acknowledged any public wrongdoing, right? They never acknowledged the fact that they, killed people wrongfully. These were protests that were out of control and they had to be dealt with. But the Chinese government actually doesn't want to say anything about this topic. Why do you think that is? I mean, there's a lot to unwrap here, right? It's like, on one hand, them telling their people not to talk about this event, already stokes fear. It's like, hey, you gotta, we're not even gonna talk about this topic, right? Could you imagine, could you imagine if we just couldn't speak about, 9/11 or, some type of like the Kennedy assassination? Could you imagine if the government just said, we acknowledge it happening, but anyone mentioning it will be censured? I mean, that's a pretty big deal, right? So one thing is just like, hey, you can't talk about this because we say so. I mean, that's pretty damn crazy that the government can control that. And oh, by the way, they control the internet. They control the media. So even if you try to search this, even if you go through VPNs, I'm sure that they could track it down. So it's like, damn, like the government saying that you can't speak about this topic is just like, I'm not sure, but I wonder if I go to China, right, and I start asking people about Tiananmen Square, they'll probably look at me side-eyed. They'll probably look at me with extreme worry, right? Like someone's listening, someone's watching. Hey, who's this American talking to me, right? Like, what the hell does he want? How dare he? Some of them might just say, how dare he speak to me about Tiananmen Square? He knows that we shouldn't be talking about this. There's a reason why he's asking. They may feel offended. On the other hand, it's super interesting for the government to say, we acknowledge it as well, right? So they're saying, yes, this happened, but the power that we hold is so strong that we're going to say that it's in the history books, but you should not follow up on it. You should not search about it. You should not speak about it. I mean, that is extremely powerful. That tells you a lot, just in a nutshell, about what the Chinese government is capable of. But now you got to get back to the mothers. You got to get back to the families. They can't mourn. They have to mourn within their own homes. I mean, think about the persistence of these victims' families. This is actually a group called the Tiananmen Mothers. They've tried to document those who died, and they've asked many times over for an official accounting. So they're actually putting their lives out on the line. Their reputations, their families are at risk here, right? And what do they want? They just want the truth. They just want it to be accounted for in the public record. That's what I would want if something were to happen to one of my family members. Because how can I possibly seek or gain closure if there are open-ended questions about it and nobody actually knows or acknowledges what happens? Many of these parents lost their sons and daughters in 1989, and they have spent 30 years asking the same question. Who died? Why did they die? Who was responsible? And now you have police officials warning relatives not to visit the cemetery where their victims are buried. That's insane. That's an official statement from the Chinese government. Now, many of these people are 70, 80, 90 years old. It's not even about, stopping demonstrations. You can't protest about this. They'll arrest you immediately. They'll thwart anybody speaking about Tiananmen Square. But stopping families from visiting their graves, wow, that's like insane. So my daughter was protesting. She gets killed by the Chinese government, and you're saying that I can't go mourn my loss. So then you got to ask, can you actually erase history? No matter what the Chinese government does, the people will always show resolve. But that fascinates me. Because most governments try to shape history, either by what they say in the present, and then, of course, the history books, right? You always got to remember the history books. Look, Trump, we're living in just, I would say, dire times, but a very interesting time, because Trump will say and do as he pleases. And then on top of that, he'll literally say a week later, 2 weeks, 5 weeks later, I didn't say that. Which is just remarkable, right? Because we'll literally have him on record. We'll have him in a video saying that he did say it. And then he'll either say something like, yeah, I didn't say it. Or, no, you had that mistaken. Or it's AI. There's just a plethora of ways that Donald Trump, or anyone for that matter, can get away with being held accountable as far as something that they said. So we're actively shaping history right now, shaping the narrative as we speak, and it is just extremely messy, extremely hard to keep up with. Of course, they are flooding us with information, trying to distract us. And that really is one of their agendas, right? Project 2025. But then the other aspect here is who writes the history books. And you know who writes the history books? It's primarily the people in charge. And of course, anybody can write a book, right? Because we have freedom of speech, and we're lucky. At least I think we do. I think we still have freedom of speech. But you can, when I say whoever's in control writes the history books, I'm being very pointed and specific with the wording here, because they ultimately not only control what's written in history books, they ultimately control the curriculum and what information gets disseminated. Because how many times do you hear like a conspiracy theory or something that's like, in some corner of the internet, and you're like, oh shoot, dude, you have to see this thing that I saw, right? Like once upon a time, people really didn't know about Epstein, and it was really just in the corner of the internet until it got broader exposure, and then the whole world started paying attention to it. That happens all the time, right? It starts with a little fire, right? A little kindle. And if more and more people start reading about it, start taking interest in it, that's when things go viral, right? That's how our media works and just how our society works, right? As far as something, catching fire, if you will. But they control whoever's in power, generally, whoever's in power controls both the narrative present, which is the most important because they hold power, right? They are doing whatever they want. They can go, attack another nation. They can impose taxes. They can do whatever they want. They control the narrative. They not only have the power to do things, but then they can tell you what they're doing and how they're doing it. And maybe because it's benevolent, they can control the narrative. And if anyone opposes them, they have the military to thwart your voice and to silence you. And they've done it before. They're actively doing it now. The other aspect of the history books, like that's really probably the sadder part. I mean, like it's both two, negative forces that we have to deal with here. But the history books are really important because, I mean, historically, if you read, if what you're reading is glorifying or praising what they're doing in present day and it's actually corrupt and malicious, then it's just like, shit, like they are winning twofold. It doesn't mean it's impossible to fight back. It just means it's that much harder. It's such an uphill battle. So China are they trying to erase history? I mean, I guess you can't visit the graves of your loved ones. I mean, they've been actively trying to make sure younger generations don't even know about Tiananmen Square. You can't Google it. You can't search it over there. Google actually fought China on this, years back, and then they removed Google out of China. This was one of the topics. It's because Google didn't want to censor anything. Another topic for another day, but I mean, discussion on this topic has been heavily censored. Search terms are blocked. Public commemorations are prohibited. References in schools and media are tightly controlled. They don't want the public to remember anything related to Tiananmen Square. Maybe it's because the government knows that they made an egregious mistake. They killed 300 people. Why? I don't understand why they couldn't just come out and just apologize. We're sorry. We failed you. We did the wrong thing. We are sorry. We should not have killed college protesters, or any protesters for that matter, for speaking out against, what was going on at that time. I mean, people don't have freedom of speech? Is that what you're really trying to say? So you're trying to change history by saying people don't have freedom of speech. And the narrative that we convey, you better accept. Because if you don't, there's a penalty for that. The government clearly believes memory itself has political consequences. And maybe they're looking at the delicate balance between holding power and not holding power. But if nobody remembers something that actually happened, does accountability ever exist? And maybe the Chinese have been not brainwashed, but maybe it's been beaten into them so much that the penalty is harsher than actually knowing the truth, that maybe they're just like, accountability, what is that word? Literally, like, what? That doesn't mean anything to me. Because I know that the repercussions for me understanding what happened or trying to acknowledge the truth far supersedes, anything that I would get if the government would actually admit it. Because if enough time passes, the government can effectively outlive a controversy. All of these parents now, they're going to die. And the truth will go along with them. I'm pretty sure that these parents are making sure that they tell their children's and ancestry, hey guys, make sure you pass this along. I'm sure they have diaries. I mean, I'm not sure, but I would make sure of that. They have a group called Tiananmen Mothers. That's probably the best thing that they could do. But to to look at your government and say, damn, these guys are not on my side. If they clearly don't want to acknowledge the truth, they're not on my side. They don't want to acknowledge a dark past in their history. It's kind of like what we're doing today in the United States, right? What the hell are we doing with slavery? Some people actually say slavery never existed in the United States. I've actually heard defenses where they say, so, well, how could slavery exist if it was the law? I'm like, so does that mean slavery doesn't exist? No, that just means that slavery was allowed, and then there were slaves, so there was still slavery, right? It's just like, no, but you're misinterpreting it. You're taking it out of context, because if it was allowed, why are we even debating it? I'm like, man, oh man, you got some, you got some people out there, man. I mean, but this is people, again, just trying to wipe out the existence of this event, and they have the power to do it. Will it ever disappear? Probably, right? People forget. Eventually, people will forget that Tiananmen Square ever happened. And if they stop promoting it or they allow discourse on the topic, it'll disappear. Now, Hong Kong, which has now been adopted and now been merged into Chinese territory, right? The British had a 50-year lease on it, which expired, I think, around 2020. And for years, there was one place on Chinese soil, which is now, it was in Hong Kong at the time, where large public commemorations continued. There were annual candlelight vigils. These regularly drew massive crowds. So they were recognizing this in Hong Kong for decades. In some years, attendance reportedly reached into the hundreds of thousands. So people gathered openly to remember the victims and call for transparency. But again, this was still under British control, Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong is part of China, and today that's largely gone. The imposition of national security laws from China and broader political changes, the vigils have now disappeared. Hong Kong was actually the last major public space connected to China where Tiananmen could still openly be remembered. And that tells you something about how much importance authorities place on controlling historical narratives. They clearly fear, I don't know, maybe potentially an uprising. It's not necessarily about what happened on June 4th, 1989. It's about memory. It's about legitimacy. And if you're asking yourself if governments can actually control history, well, I mean, if you think that they can control the narrative, then they can certainly control history. One thing begets the next. And it shouldn't be lost on us that every government wants people to remember certain things and forget others. That's how they keep us in control, under their thumb. The difference is the degree. I mean, 37 years later, some of these parents are asking the same questions. People are still lighting candles. They just have to do so clandestinely, not out in the open. And authorities are still trying to stop them. That should tell you something. Because even if an event is truly settled in history, governments usually don't spend decades trying to prevent people from talking about it. The memory is still there. Tiananmen Square is still there. This photo will forever remain, I think, in not only the hearts, but the minds of the Chinese people. But one day it'll fade. And that means that the Chinese government probably wins. But again, the bigger story here is why. Why would the government put out a notice to say that they couldn't even visit graves? That tells you that they are still worried about this. And you will not, most importantly, you will not cross the government. If they put out a memo and you do not follow, you understand that there will be consequences, whether justified or not. That's clearly how the Chinese government operates. All right, next topic. All right, and I love this one because, you know, this is right up my alley. This is right up the freedom of speech alley, which, you know, we really don't even have. There's no more freedom of speech. There's no more nothing, okay? There's only keep your mouth shut and don't get slapped. That's what they're doing, right? Republicans finally have said no. No to your bullshit. Republicans have finally stood up. The anti, not so anti weaponization fund. And it's nice to see that, you know, the government actually has a spine, that they're not just, you know, sitting puppets. The Trump administration has proposed a roughly $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. This is tied to claims that certain Americans, including some Trump supporters, January 6 defendants, and others, were unfairly targeted by government actions. Now, this came out just a couple weeks back. Whether you think those people deserve compensation or not, it's really not the point. Point is what happened next. So hold on. First of all, let's get to what the hell they were saying they were going to do with $1.8 billion of our taxpayer money. They were saying that the people that rioted, or anybody that was a political foe, a political enemy of prior administrations, could essentially file suit and receive some compensation of our money. $1.8 billion. I mean, like they just pulled that money out of, I mean, we have a treasury in the United States, right? And that's where all of our tax dollars go. And they're just using this money however they see fit. They're spending $150 million plus, more than $150 million for this America 250 event, you know, on July 4th for our 250th birthday. They're spending more than $150 million. They're spending millions just on the pool itself, on redesigning the pool. Is it going to look nice? I'm sure. But do we need that? I mean, aren't we past that societally? We're spending all this money on bullshit. I mean, at some point you grow up, you grow out of this shit, right? And you realize, okay, I can't keep making these, you know, these poor expenditures, these poorly estimated expenditures, like, I don't know, new clothes or just filling up a reflection pool at the, you know, at the Washington Monument. Like, why do we need to do this? If it's literally going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't know why the government would even propose such a thing. And if you really want to do it, why don't we just vote on it? Just put out a referendum or something. I mean, we could easily do that. The government doesn't want us to vote on anything. They just want to do whatever the hell they want to do and just create a spectacle out of everything. So they were going to allow $1.8 billion of our money. $1.8 billion, y'all. I mean, what the fuck? And they were going to give it to people that stormed the Capitol. Are you kidding me? Didn't you all see what happened on January 6th? I mean, we all saw it, right? You think these people should deserve money? Many of them were found guilty. This is who we wanted to give money back to? And some of these people are working in ICE right now, by the way. This is what we wanted to. I don't understand that. And I'm just, I mean, the fact that the government like even was just, I don't know, even with this from the start, it's just, it should be startling to all Americans.
What the fuck? They broke through. It's on.
I mean, these guys were fighting with Capitol Police trying to overturn an election. Are you kidding me? And they were doing it on behalf of our current president, which insists that he won that election. He still insists that there was collusion and corruption. Unbelievable. And you're going to appropriate $1.8 billion and say, hey, anybody that felt that they were wronged or anybody that felt that and any of this cult following, because that's what they are, right? I don't know why we keep denying the 2020 election. We heard, oh man, this isn't even about just the 2020 election. I mean, like we actually heard Trump say, "Find me votes in Georgia." I mean, I don't know how many examples we need to put out there. This is corruption at its finest, and these people were misled into poor people. Really, it's easy to get mad at them, but I mean, shame on our president. It's really Donald Trump for pushing and persuading these people to drive hundreds of miles, take the day off, put their lives at risk, commit crimes, threaten our Congress. And now we want to compensate them? What kind of shit is coming out of our White House? So now Republicans finally get a spine. They finally pushed back. Of course, that's unusual because the Republican Party always takes Trump's position. Most Republicans fall in line. Most people will not even deny. They still accept the idea that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Every single time one of these people are deposed or there's a Senate confirmation hearing, usually they're asked, who won the 2020 election? And they either say nothing, they say that that's already on record, I'm not going to say anything, or they say that Donald Trump won it because they're Trump sycophants. It's all about just being a Trump loyalist. That's above and beyond more significant than serving the American people, which of course is just as confusing as anything else on this planet. But this time you actually have Republican lawmakers openly questioning the proposal. Because last time I checked, politics and a democracy is not supposed to work like a monarchy. Donald Trump is not supposed to just sit there, make a settlement. By the way, this came by way of a settlement that he had with his lawsuit against the IRS, against the United States, in which now Donald Trump cannot be audited for any of his past taxes. He has immunity from being audited with the IRS. Wow. If that doesn't just tell you everything about him taking advantage of being the president, he's a smart man, right? This man is a genius. He knows what the hell he's doing. So as a result of him settling with the IRS, he not only gets immunity from being audited, him and his family, by the way, but they create this $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund that gives them the ability to pay out all of these people, which he already pardoned. You recall that he already pardoned all of the January 6th rioters, and he's actually appointed them to several posts in the White House. Again, some of them are working in ICE. They love these people. These are all Trump loyalists, and they're being rewarded for it, for committing crimes. So we elected our representatives and they were doing nothing. What did they do? Hundreds of our lawmakers were sitting on the sidelines saying, yes, you can pay out these people. Until they all actually got a spine collectively and said, yes, we can support Trump, but we're also going to tell him when he's wrong. And this is one of those moments. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying it like I'm thanking them at this point. But yes, we are supposed to disagree. This did not make sense from the start. $1.8 billion? Isn't disagreement part of representative government? I mean, that's what our founders expected, right? I think. In fact, they actually designed the system around it. That's why we have checks and balances. Now, one of the easiest things to forget in modern politics is that Congress is not supposed to be an extension of the White House. They are the legislative branch. They are supposed to ask questions. The president proposes, Congress disposes. That's the theory here. The House and Senate are supposed to act as a check on his power, not blindly agree with everything. They're not a cheering section. They're also not a resistance movement. They are a separate branch of government. Republicans have challenged Bush. Democrats challenged Obama. They also challenged Biden. That's not unusual. That's normal. That's the way it's supposed to work. But more importantly, what we want to highlight here is why the pushback matters. This is why we do videos like this. This is why journalism matters. I'm not saying that this is journalism or anything, but this is why we need the media. I know that a lot of people like to paint the media out to be a foe. Donald Trump does it himself. But this is why we need the media, because the moment that this story broke, that we were going to give compensation, our money, so the rest of the United States was going to give money to these January 6th rioters. What's going on here? Like, we're truly in a crazed world if we think that this should be allowed. And because we pushed back on it, because enough people were speaking about it, they are now acquiescing. Now, this doesn't mean that something, huge is changing inside the Republican Party. Maybe Trump still remains the dominant figure, but the fact that they're actually saying no to this one piece of legislation, maybe that should confuse, a little of what Trump is doing here. Maybe that kind of stirs up his influence. Again, it's just one bill. But we still have to ask the question on whether, some Republicans are beginning to think differently about their own political futures. Because on one hand, if you back President Trump, you're almost good as gold as far as getting elected. I mean, he seldom loses when he backs a party member. But on the other hand, I mean, you do have midterms approaching, and Trump will soon be out of office in just a couple of years. So do you want your record to be the fact that you defended this man, especially if something egregious comes out in the future, which I definitely think is going to happen? I think everything's going to be spilled out on Jeffrey Epstein and a whole bunch of corruption. I think it'll come out after his presidency. But do you want to be tied to that? Do you want that your legacy and your career to be tied to the fact that you supported bills like this, that you supported Trump blindly? But I'm going to give the credit not necessarily to the politicians here. I'm giving all of the credit to the American constituents, because we spoke up enough and we said, hey, this doesn't really make sense to me. This is actually pretty stupid. I can't believe that we would compensate people that actually committed crimes. And if you're willing to do that, right? If you're actually willing to compensate these people, I mean, no, number one, I wish I would have been there, because I would like a piece of that pie. But it kind of makes me question, like, I mean, I like, you're being rewarded for committing crimes, right? That's the first aspect. But the fact that the law can pass, right? It's even one thing to pardon all of these people, but the fact that the law can pass, that means that not only did the president do what he wanted, but everyone else, we're talking about hundreds of lawmakers didn't step up to try to block this legislation. Like, that's insane. That tells you that we're rotting from within. That tells you that corruption is essentially our model, that all checks and balances have gone to the wayside or by the wayside. Do we even have a government anymore? We do not. We have an authoritarian regime. And that is the de facto position of the United States. I mean, seriously, we have a king in the United States. We do not have a president. I don't think he wants to be called a king. I think he likes being called the president, but it's whatever Donald Trump says goes. Finally, we have Republican lawmakers stepping up and saying, enough is enough. This is stupid. Why the fuck should I compensate thousands of people who went and broke the law? I don't know these people, and I don't agree with what they did. But this is on Americans. This is because Americans pushed back. This wasn't because of the lawmakers. It seldom ever is. So really, the round of applause here has to go to the United States really pushing back on this. And I'm talking about the general public. We didn't agree with it from the outset. And as a result, it's not going to be pushed through. All right, we're going to end it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.